Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says that President Cyril Ramaphosa is consulting key stakeholders over the recommendations of the Section 89 panel report. The report, handed to the National Assembly by retired Judge Sandile Ngcobo, found that the president had a case to answer regarding the Phala Phala farm theft matter. The president was expected to address South Africans over the issue. Magwenya says, however, that this is not a process that can be conducted in haste.
The President appreciates the urgency of this issue. The President appreciates the enormity of this issue, what it means for the country, the stability of government. And as a result of that, he is still processing the report, but in that exercise, he's also engaging a number of role players and stakeholders across the governing party, different levels of the governing party, at different levels of the alliance, and he's engaging a broad range of stakeholders. And this is in appreciation of, as I said, the enormity of the matter. We are in an unprecedented and extraordinary moment as a constitutional democracy as a result of the report. And therefore, whatever decision the president makes, that decision has to be informed by the best interest of the country, and that decision cannot be rushed and cannot be taken in haste.
The ANC's National Executive Committee is holding a special meeting tomorrow. The meeting will discuss the Section 89 panel report submitted to the National Assembly Speaker yesterday. The panel, chaired by retired Judge Sandile Ngcobo, found that President Cyril Ramaphosa may have a case to answer regarding the Phala Phala farm saga. Some ANC members, including Tony Yengeni, presidential hopefuls Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Lindiwe Sisulu, have now called on Ramaphosa to step aside.
We did not forgo the moral initiative. None of the ANC leaders have done so. We are meeting as members of the National Executive Committee to receive a report. After receiving a report and having deliberated, we will rise in that NEC with a position. It will be that position which we deposit out in the public. And that position will be reflective of the stand the ANC has taken on this matter. By the way, one of the things that you need to appreciate is that the ANC is alive to the fact that the Phala Phala saga has had a negative effect on its public standing, on its reputation, on its credibility, on how much it is able to be accepted by the public. The ANC is on record as saying that. We did not hide ourselves from saying that. So anything that affects the credibility of the ANC, whether that matter involves the president of the ANC or the last member of Pule Mabi or any other person in the National Executive Committee, we express ourselves on those. When the issue of Phala Phala first came, the president volunteered to appear before the Integrity Commission so that he uses that platform to express himself on what he may or may not know as it relates to this. As we have said before, the National Executive Committee has not as yet received a report detailing that engagement between the Integrity Commission and the President. So it would be unfair to enter that space not having fully received even a report from an organizational process. Now there is a process that Parliament had set up. That process produced the Section 89 report yesterday, which we are now aware of. The report has been made public and all of that. It's not the dictate of the ANC on how Parliament should function. Parliament dictates and determines its own processes. It has done that work. The ANC will meet today to reflect on the outcomes of that report and the related recommendations. And after those reflections, the ANC would then say, this is the position or stand that the organization is taking on this report.
Well, Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined by Professor William Gumede, who's an associate professor at the School of Governance at the University of the Witwatersrand. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you. A couple of things. I mean, as journalists, we love to say it's a moving story, and it really is. So a couple of things have happened. Tonight, we find out that this planned meeting by the NEC has been moved over to tomorrow. What can we read from that, do you think?
Thank you for having me. I'm always very happy, to have a conversation with the SABC. I think really it is to give all of the parties in the ANC an opportunity to think the next step, and also to give President Cyril Ramaphosa, I think, the time to ask for advice, from his legal advisors and also from his political allies, what to do. I mean, it's a very, very important decision that he has to make, to step down. Or not to step down. In these sort of circumstances, it is often really useful to bring in wider expertise and advisors, to help one think through that. From the ANC's National Executive Committee view, I mean, I think the reason why they most will be movies from today to tomorrow is also for them to give the president a chance to reflect what he's going to do next, and also for the National Executive Committee members of the ANC to decide how they're going to respond.
We heard the presidential spokesperson say that all options are on the table, and the president's foremost concern is what's good for the country. We've seen the rand drop to levels last seen in 2020. That is already an indicator of perhaps things are not going great for the country. It was very careful, the wording that the presidential spokesperson used, but is it starting to point to a certain direction in your view?
I mean, I think maybe the first thing just to say, this is a very critical moment in our democracy. Maybe to start from the democracy side, as the founder of the Democracy Works Foundation, which is now the largest democratic foundation that builds state capacity in democracy on the continent, it's very important. I mean, the whole process is maturing our democracy. I mean, the fact that there was an independent panel appointed by Parliament and it made its recommendations. So really, that is a very, very important in building our democratic culture. Secondly, I think also, for ordinary citizens to understand that it is very normal in a democracy for a leader to stand down. In fact, it's very, very important for the leaders to stand down if there is wrongdoing, or if the leader's party loses confidence in the individual. Now, back directly to your question in terms of really, I think is the ANC is in a crisis. I mean, we've got a couple of days, just over a week, to the ANC's national conference where we're supposed to elect its new leadership, its National Executive Committee, its top 6 leadership, and, it is now facing its biggest crisis. It's very likely, I think, there is the option for Ramaphosa. I mean, what are his options? I mean, the first option is to resign immediately. That would be the one option. When I say immediately, obviously not tomorrow, but perhaps resign at the ANC's conference at a conference on the first day of the conference. I mean, that's the one option. And then he will have to deal, obviously, with the fallout from there. I mean, many of his opponents within the ANC is really using this report to take him on. If it wasn't a national elective year, or a rather election year in the ANC party cycle, it would have been different. But now this is an election year for the ANC. There are many competitors who want to take over from Ramaphosa. They're going to use this moment to mobilize against him and to get rid of him. The second option for him is obviously to wait for Parliament, because Parliament will now get a report. Parliament will make a decision, and one of the decisions is that Parliament may call for a vote of no confidence or for impeachment. I mean, and to go that route is very risky for the president's reputation, because the president wouldn't know whether he will have the support base within the ANC itself, within the ANC's parliamentary caucus. And if one gets a vote of no confidence or an impeachment, it really is humiliating for the president. So it's always, if the president, it's always better to resign rather than face a humiliation of a vote of no confidence.
Who might he be consulting? Again, the presidential spokesperson said that, various stakeholders, alliance partners, but there are probably a few key people that he'll probably talk to. And I just wonder what the conversations might be about. If I keep on thinking about the interests of the country, might he be consulting to say, how do we make sure that if I go, that things stay in place after me?
I mean, in a situation like this, the first thing one needs to do is get legal advice. So I assume the president will be sitting now and get, constitutional advice, legal advice, look at it and study the report. What does the report actually say? If he stays on and wait for a parliamentary process or wait or for other processes, what does it mean, from a democracy point of view? What does it mean from a constitutional point of view? So he needs, I sense that is what he would want to get, legal advice. That's really is the first thing in terms of, and also his options. If he leaves now, if he stays on, what are the options? Then the second advice that he really needs to get is political advice, strategic political advice to say, and what would that mean? To get in people who would say, well, if he resigns, let's say tomorrow, or if he resigns at a conference, or should he go and actually contest the party leadership and maybe stand down from the country presidency. And then also he will need to hear advice sort of from people on the ground to say, what is the political mood, in the country and in the party right now. If he stay on, or and he fights, let's just say, the conclusions of the report, will he get support, among ANC supporters, ANC members, the ANC leadership, or wider society? And maybe lastly, what is important, if he resigns, should he then resign over a period, say 6 months, a 6 months transitional period, so that whoever gets elected at the ANC conference takes some time, to get into the presidency. So so both legal advice and then political strategic advice.
One gets a sense that this NEC meeting is going to be quite heated, and that there will be sides, and it could be quite bruising. And in the end, could it be more damaging for the party than actually just trying to simply resolve an issue?
I think this certainly is a bigger crisis potentially than the Zuma transition crisis. The crisis where Zuma was pushed out of the presidency of the country. This is actually a bigger crisis. And if you ask me why would I say this is a bigger crisis, because, Cyril Ramaphosa, for all the criticism of him, he is certainly the last of the ANC leaders that can unify the party, and that also has support beyond the party itself. Now, these are two really critical elements. If Ramaphosa, if he resigns as leader of the ANC and as leader of the country, it is very likely that it is the final decline of the ANC. So this is a very, very critical moment. Right now, after Ramaphosa, there isn't the kind of leaders with the depth that can unify both the ANC and the country. So it's very likely if Ramaphosa leaves and somebody else takes over, that in 2024, there's the next national elections, that the ANC may actually drop to under 40%. And then very likely that the opposition parties will, after 2024, would be in power. So it's an absolutely critical moment. Many ANC supporters and ANC leaders, I don't think fully grasp how Ramaphosa is actually holding the ANC together. Obviously, holding the ANC, the different factions of the ANC together, has undermined the state in itself because it just caused paralysis on the state. But if you just look at it from an ANC party political point of view, he has been very crucial in holding the ANC as a party together. And of course, he has integrated the state and the country because he's been holding the ANC together. The other thing is about it also, what's happening now in the ANC is there are two factions. Obviously, there is the faction that's which is supporting Ramaphosa. Then there's a faction what is called the Radical Economic Transformation faction, who are opposed to Ramaphosa. Now, when Ramaphosa goes, the Ramaphosa group will also split into little factions, and the Radical Economic Transformation faction will also split into little groups. So we'll have so many different factions in the ANC, and it's really going to be very difficult to bring the ANC together. So instead of, I think life beyond the Ramaphosa in the ANC would be, instead of a Ramaphosa group and an RET faction, it would be multiple factions fighting for control of the ANC.
Professor Gumede, always good talking to you. Thank you so much. Your insights greatly appreciated. Thanks for your time.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's Professor William Gumede, an associate professor at the School of Governance at Wits University. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll speak to a young firebrand. He calls himself part of a special generation, and he's definitely not been a fan of Cyril Ramaphosa. Controversial at times. We'll be talking to Andile Lungisa. Stay with us.